Sara, I guess for you, this is a huge day because your journalism has really exposed a lot of the attempts to destroy this president and first his campaign. So welcome to the show, and let's get your take on what happened today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Todd. It's great to be with you. It was a huge day. I mean, this is so significant. I think even the fact that Robert Mueller testified, there's so many people, and, even me, based on what we know of this investigation, the fact that he testified in what many are describing as this theatrical hearing pushed by the Democrats really backfired on them. He's a prosecutor. He was special counsel. He wrote a report. He did not bring, other than the charges he brought against the Russians, Mike Flynn, on all these others, he wrote his report. The report stands on its own. There was no collusion, no conspiracy between the Trump campaign nor any American with the Russians in the 2016 election. And part of the scope of his investigation was to actually look at all details and aspects of Russia's interference in 2016. What we got today was very painful. We could see that he didn't know all the issues, even within his own report. He contradicted himself on numerous occasions. He lacked the ability to kind of bring forward his thoughts on some of these aspects when he was grilled by Republicans and also by Democrats. There were many times where he had to step back and he said, well, if it's in the report, it's there. He didn't answer those questions. I think that was painful to watch. I think that the push he was used. Obviously, I've spoken to a number of sources who said, look, he didn't write this full report. Everybody is assuming, everybody believes that it was Andrew Weissman, what they called his pit bull in the New York Times, his right-hand man who was involved in the Arthur Anderson case, which was obviously overturned by the Supreme Court, somebody who is a hardcore prosecutor who put this report together. And there was a distinct difference between Volume 1, which focused on whether or not anybody conspired within the Trump campaign or any American with the Russians, and Volume 2, which dealt with obstruction, which is, I believe, the dirty laundry, which was brought up during the hearing. This idea of throwing everything into this report, private conversations, utilizing whatever they wanted, which I assume, although Robert Mueller said no, he didn't write the report or the report wasn't written to go public, but everybody knows based on what was in the second volume of that report regarding obstruction was probably going to be seen by the public because there was such a need for it.
Sara,
it was very fascinating to me.
Let me jump in here real quick. I want to get your take on the questioning from the Republicans. I was a little concerned coming out of the gate with Doug Collins. He was just speaking so fast, and it was hard for people to understand what was going on. But I got to tell you, I think they recovered pretty quickly. Jim Jordan, Louis Gohmert, and John Ratcliffe. Wow.
They were amazing. And even Matt Gaetz, everybody's
right.
questions were right on target, with Jim Jordan and how he focused in on Joseph Mifsud. And I hope everyone had an opportunity to see John Solomon's story, which broke yesterday. And we were discussing on Sean Hannity's show on Fox. But the fact that now Joseph Mifsud, who was basically the reason that the FBI said they started this investigation, he was the foreign professor who basically targeted George Papadopoulos, gave George Papadopoulos the information that Russia was apparently had all of these emails. Now we come to find out that he was actually working, according to his own attorney, for Western intelligence and had worked with the United States, according to his own attorney. So it appears that this professor, just like Stefan Halper out of Cambridge, they were both working in cahoots, it appears, with Western intelligence and the U.S. intelligence apparatus prior to even the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into President Trump, which was on July 31st of 2016. So we're seeing all of this come to life here, and Mueller couldn't answer those questions. But think about this. All of these players, Christopher Steele, who got information from the Russians to put in his dirty dossier, those questions were also brought up. They were brought up by Matt Gaetz and others. Basically, Mueller didn't even look at that. Wasn't Mueller's purview, wasn't his scope of his investigation with the special counsel to investigate all of Russia's interference in the 2016 presidential election? And this is where he failed. And this is where we see a highly politicized report targeting President Trump, going directly after the Trump administration, and the reasons why we should be extraordinarily concerned about this. And it was brought up numerous times, and I go back to all of these obstruction questions. You know, those private conversations, we value privacy in this country. And, of course, the president would be frustrated. He had told people over and over again, according to sources that I spoke with, nothing to do with Russia. I don't even know any of these Russians are talking. What are they talking about? I never conspired. There is no conspiracy here. Our nation has been held hostage for roughly 2 years during this investigation. And the fact that President Trump would be upset or say things in private conversations, which, by the way, he never acted on, and no one ever acted on, regarding Mueller. This dirty laundry, this ability to kind of twist words of people and not give the opportunity for those people to explain themselves in this report is the reason why so many of the Republicans said, look, this is a politicized report. We know what's going on here. We know where this is leading to. And the reason they're fighting back so hard, Todd, the reason the Democrats and people like Comey, the former FBI director who was fired, Andrew McCabe, John Brennan, James Clapper are fighting with all their might now is because there is a direct investigation that's looking directly at them and the beginning of the investigation into President Trump, and they are terrified because according to sources that I've spoken with and according to numerous reports that have been made public, there was malfeasance in this investigation, and they particularly targeted the Trump administration for this investigation, and that's what they are looking at. So John Durham as well as Inspector General Michael Horowitz.
All right, real quick here, Sarah, one final question. We are waiting for the House Intelligence Committee to start their hearing. What are some of the questions that need to be asked that have not been asked?
They really need to focus on the exculpatory evidence that was left out of the report. Why were these Russians, like Konstantin Klimenko, the oligarch, why did they not reveal in the special counsel's report that he was an asset for the FBI, that they made it look like this very nefarious connection between Manafort and such when Klimenko himself was an asset for the FBI? Why did they leave out significant information regarding the Steele dossier? There are a lot of questions here, and particularly with Carter Page and the FISA. And why did he use this dossier, which was debunked, which was basically unprovable even within FBI headquarters? They were unable to prove those allegations. They used that, actually, if you look at page 11 of the Mueller report, they used aspects of that dossier in this special counsel investigation. So I think they really need to get to the nitty-gritty. They need to ask the questions that are going to be really difficult to answer, but they need to ask him why, with the expanse of his report and his ability to investigate anything Russia, why did they just focus on one particular aspect on the Trump campaign, and why didn't they look at all aspects of this, going all the way back to Hillary Clinton, going back to Fusion GPS, Joseph Mifsud, and all of that, because it appears, based on its face, that the report was misleading to the American people.
All right, good stuff. We're going to have to leave it there, Sarah. As always,